The Immortal Thor number 25 was released few hours ago and presented the finale of this run by Al Ewing. In Utgard, Thor and his comrades managed to defeat Kemur the Elder God, who was later killed by Loki when he shot the Eternity Mask between his eyes as an arrow. Thor then defeated Maged, the god of lies and mysteries, and Nurgle, the unforgiving city. When Thor felt like he won the battle, he was unexpectedly stabbed by Loki with a piece of the Eternity Mask turned into arrow. Thor falls dead, and his spirit departs where none can follow. Loki apologizes for what he did, with Utgard Loki watching from behind. He wonders what trick Loki is playing, and Loki tells him that more will be told before vanishing. Utgard Loki pondered the game as it lay before him. Thor had won the trial and had endured, while Kemur and Maged had fallen, yet Thor was dead, and the way to both realms was now open, and that all lay in the Elder God's way was Scourge, whom Thor placed halfway across the bridge to halt the Utgard gods by any means he could. Scourge tried to give his life for Thor, and now he wants to give his life for his own legacy. He raised the blood axe high, and with one blow shattered the Black Bridge, and fell. But the Rainbow Bridge was also shattered, because the Black Bridge to Utgard and the Rainbow Bridge to Midgard were opposite yet two sides of a single coin, and all between Asgard and Midgard were sundered. Thor has been erased from people's memories, as if he never existed. Nobody remembers who he was and what role he played with the Avengers. Meanwhile, Thor enters into death and finds himself not in Valhalla nor in Hell. He is in Vidblain, the land of the lost souls and dreadful demons. Thor mistakenly thinks that the demon wants to attack him, but it just attacks and eats an insect, as if it didn't see Thor because he is already dead, and there's no point in fighting a dead man. Thor can't summon his hammer anymore, and even rain in this realm is weak and formless. Suddenly, the mysterious three kings, Har, Jafnar, and Treaty, appear to Thor and tell him that they speak the high truth. The first king says that Odin died and must remain in Valhalla, and Odin's one eye is greater than a king, and that a seeker of knowledge will always seek it more. The second king says that two paths diverge, one is long and the other is short, and to beware ambition in two forms, and that where there is a throne, there is a grave. The third king tells Thor that he walks the path of sacrifice, and that he sacrifices himself to himself, exactly as Odin did before him. But Thor must walk where Odin could not, on a path not yet taken, and Thor will not walk it alone. The king asks Thor about who sits in his shadow, and Thor says Donald Blake, who appears and tells Thor that he already told him that they were connected, and that he can find him anywhere. Thor tells Blake that he became the god of lies as he wished to be, and Blake says that he became everything Loki no longer wanted to be. Thor says that he created Blake as his father did before, and some would say that Blake is Thor's greatest sin. Blake doesn't like being no more than a sin, but Thor apologizes for what he said, and for all he did and should have done, and wonders if Blake can forget this bitterness, because Thor is dead now. Blake says that Thor could be so much deader, then summons a hammer and hits Thor with it. Blake tells Thor that he doesn't understand what he is sorry for, and wonders if Thor has suffered before. He blasts Thor with Helnir, the devil's hammer, which is forged from Promethium and hate, and through Blake's power, the hammer is made the dark opposite of Mjolnir. He strikes Thor again, with storm that feels like poison in his veins. Thor tells Blake that he speaks madness, but Blake says that he is correcting Odin's mistake, because arrogance with a smile is still arrogance, and a kindly king is still a king, and because there are lessons that can be learned only through sacrifice. Blake blasts Thor in his eyes and blinds him, then pounds on him, remarking that he will teach him what he doesn't know, as a piece of wisdom. But Thor tells Blake that there's no wisdom on this road, because it's already taken, then grabs the hammer. Thor tells Blake that he once gave his eyes for wisdom, tore them from his head, and hurled them into Mimir's well, then died on the world tree, and learned the runes and the power and magic of his birthright. Thor tells Blake that he spoke the truth when he said that Thor had to learn something more strange than the runes and more terrible than death. If both Thor and Blake are immortal, then there's a human soul that goes spare between them. So let be a new sacrifice of all power and pride, a sacrifice beyond death itself. Thor snatches the hammer from Blake and tells him to let the winter of gods comes now, then strikes the hammer on the ground, causing a great explosion that knocks Blake away, and reveals his true identity as the great serpent, who wore the name of Donald Blake, but could never be that again. The serpent wonders what Thor did to his soul, but there is no god left to answer, and though he gazed to the end of eternity, there was no star to guide him, and no bird to show him sign, as Thor is gone. Later on, Thor hears someone telling him to open his eyes, and wakes up to find himself with a young Loki, who calls himself Lucky. The boy tells Thor that he is lucky that he found him, and gives him a wallet, a few dollars, and an apartment key. The boy tells Thor that he doesn't have an ID, and that he must remember his name, and Thor says that his name is Sigurd Jarlsson, and he's just a man. So that was the finale of the Immortal Thor run, and the beginning of the Mortal Thor 1. I don't think that the Immortal Thor run was well received as the Immortal Hulks, because it didn't add much to Thor's legacy in my opinion, and finally ended with erasing Thor from existence, and reintroducing him as a powerless and mortal being. Hope you liked the video. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like. Thanks for watching, and have a nice one.